Challenges Forum partners, friends of Challenges Forum, welcome back to this last session of this week. My name is Björn Holmberg. I'm the director of the Challenges Forum International Secretariat. And I'm delighted that we're going to have now a reflection on what are the key takeaways from this week, from the dialogue strands where our partners and experts and colleagues have been reflecting on key aspects of this annual forum's focus on framing peace operations in a changing global landscape. I would like to invite our co-host to chair this session with me. And I'm happy to invite first Annette Leijenaar, a division head at the Institute for Security Studies in South Africa. Welcome on board, Annette. And I would also like to invite Soemirat, who's director at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia. Welcome, Roy. And I also like to invite Professor Cedric de Koning from NUPI in Norway. Welcome, Cedric. And finally, but not least, Benoît Pylyser, our senior strategic advisor at the International Secretariat. We are the five that are going to make you company during this last session. And let me just briefly start to take you a bit through the journey we've made. On Monday, we had the opening day, and of course, reflecting then on this changing global landscape. We went after that into a high-level conversation on how to deliver peace operations using the full spectrum of the concept of peace operations, from political and peacebuilding missions, special envoys to peacekeeping missions. And we also reflected on the Women, Peace and Security agenda, knowing that we're celebrating 25 years of both successes and failures and some hardships to come to really reach all the way. On Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we had the three dialogue strands on AU-UN partnership. It was on peace building and peace operations, and on performance, especially looking at strategic management tools for improving the effectiveness of peace operations. And we've all just enjoyed an excellent high-level conversation on the primacy of politics in peace operations that I believe gave us all a lot of food for thought. So having said so and really summarized a bit the journey until today, I'm really happy to invite our three co-hosts. And the layout of this session will be that we will listen to some of the key recommendations coming from each of the three dialogue strands. And I'll ask the participants in this panel, the co-host and Benoît, to reflect some on the presentations we hear and also seek some synergies. What do we find that the dialogue strands actually have might have reached common conclusions or can create some synergies between them? So by having said so, I would be very happy, Annette, to listen a bit to you on your key three recommendations coming up on the discussion on AU-UN partnership and how that can be improved. Please, Annette.
Thank you. The host muted me, so I hope you can now hear me. Björn, first of all, I would like to thank you for this excellent forum. And most importantly, your outstanding leadership throughout the planning process and the execution process of this annual forum. We were in charge of Strand 1, Dialogue Strand 1, which relates to the UN-AU partnership in terms of peace operations. The first recommendation that I would like to highlight from the Dialogue Strand is that it is clear that while the UN and the AU have increasingly worked in partnership, there is still much to be done to ensure that both institutions achieve their intended results. First, a much better understanding and respect of one another's political will and ambitions is required. Furthermore, we need to move away from simply creating formalized structures and bureaucratic responses as a single solution for creating a meaningful partnership. In order to be strengthened, the UN-AU partnership needs to be based on mutual political respect and better mutual understanding of how the two institutions work, their roles and comparative advantages. Furthermore, both the UN Secretariat and the AU Commission could do well with better managing the UNSC and the AUPSC expectations in the way they collaborate on working level and how they plug into each other's structures and capacities. The UN and AU don't always have analog functions between each other, and that should be kept in mind as a means to avoid overwhelming or underwhelming potential collaboration. Adaptability and mutual understanding of strengths and weaknesses thus is key. That is our first recommendation. I will immediately go to the second recommendation. Secondly, more can be done at the political level, particularly regarding the relationship between the UN Security Council and the AU Peace and Security Council. Both organs should encourage synergies that foster better division of labor at strategic and operational levels, including through better harmonization of agendas, development of joint analysis, joint missions, and better implementation of communiques and decision. Both the UNC and the AUPSC should foster a global discussion around subsidiarity that focuses more on complementarity than just on hierarchy. And the A3, the 3 African member states in the UN Security Council, have a central role in enhancing the relationship by advancing African common positions in the Council and effectively serving as a bridge between the two councils. They can indeed create a better synergy between the UN and the AU. My last recommendation, and the recommendations, of course, are on behalf of the group. Thirdly and lastly, regarding the need for bringing the triangular relationship between the UN, AU, and regional economic communities closer to each other. While much work and emphasis has been put into the UN-AU partnership, the AU-REX partnership and the UN-REX partnership has received less attention and needs to be enhanced to ensure a truly triangular engagement. This would assist interaction not only at the strategic levels, but also at the operational and tactical levels too. Here also the importance has been raised throughout the week of the very critical importance that the UN country team has to play in that relationship. Certainly, regional economic communities are diverse. There is an imbalance of capacity amongst the REX, which should be the starting point of engagements. There should not be a one-size-fits-all approach, but rather adaptability amongst different regions and organizational capacities. Also, in engaging better with sub-regional organizations, both the UN and AU should aim to foster collaboration on specific thematic and cross-cutting areas, particularly in relation to gender and youth matters. And last but not the least, in this process of UN-AU-REX relationship, the issue of conflict prevention will always be paramount in trying to find solutions to situations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Annette. I'm happy to hear this are the fruits actually of a full day of discussions. We should say virtual full days, meaning three hours plus between a number of participants in your dialogue strands. I don't know if Roy or Cedric has if you have any reflections or thoughts on what Annette has presented that relates to your discussions. Roy, I see you would like to come in, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Björn, and thank you, Annette, and congratulations for the successful Dialogue Strand 1 event a couple of days ago. There are so many, what do you call it, as intertwined issues, although maybe not really directly discussed and not really reflected in the, let's say, key takeaways on Dialogue Strand 2, but I have to inform all of you that practically the issue of the what they call synergy between the regional players and the UN is always coming up from time to time during the discussion on the Dialogue Strand 2, and also the issue of possible support like what do you call it, the South-South and triangular cooperations also come up to the discussion. And I think this is something that also connected to the discussion, an overall discussion in your Dialogue Strand. So it's good later on to keep this particular, what do you call it, connection, especially since we are talking about limited resources, or maybe when we are talking about the need for capacity building and training. This kind of what do you call it, mindset should be built up from the very beginning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roy. Cedric.
Thank you very much, Björn, and thank you, Annette. I think in the context from the perspective of Dialogue Strand 3 on performance, I can also see clear, interlinkages between the very fruitful discussions you had in Dialogue Strand 1 on the UN-AU partnership. And one thing that I think came up in our context in different ways that I could mention is that, there's value in also looking at emerging lessons and experiences across different peacekeeping or peace operation experiences, especially in those settings where the UN and the AU and the EU and others are co-deployed. And so perhaps one thing specific one can recommend, I had the opportunity to be part of a process earlier this year where the AU, EU, OSCE, NATO, UN and others were exchanging lessons around how they were adapting to COVID-19. And I could imagine that it'd be very useful to have a more formal, almost annual get-together of these different regional organizations together with the United Nations, and where they can share lessons on a specific topic, let's say, for instance, women, peace and security, or their own different experiences of increasing the representation of women, or increasing how, improving or enhancing how their missions mainstream gender in their work. So I think this kind of get together of the different institutions also stimulate their institutions internally then to prepare for such a meeting and to do some internal cross-mission learning, which can then be synthesized and shared with the other institutions. So I think that could both be, within an institution like the UN or the African Union, but also across the institutions, be a very useful vehicle for shared learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Cedric. And I think that's also learning from organizational theory, is that if you don't speak about coordination, but you work on concrete themes or processes, it's much easier to find concrete solutions. And I think Annette's reflection on all levels, looking at the operational and tactical level or lower levels, is also as important as the political level of collaboration. That has come out in a lot of the discussions actually these days. Benoît, any chip in from you or any thoughts?
Thank you, Björn. I think Annette covered pretty much many of the points. Just a few reflections from my side, maybe, particularly on the African Union UN dynamic, and from a perspective of women, peace and security, and youth, peace and security, and the importance of that in an African context. I think there was a lot of discussion in the various working groups on the need for a strategic convergence on these cross-cutting issues, and the need for the UN and the AU to get a better sense on how to take those cross-cutting issues forward. I thought that was an interesting point. the point on prevention is a very important one, and one that was just lifted by the former Special Envoy, Sajinit, in our high-level discussion. Because realities, conflict settings are getting increasingly complex and multi-layered, there is that need for the AU and the UN to revisit the conflict prevention collaboration there, and really look at how to better address an increasing regionalization of conflicts. And maybe a last point from me, a point that resonated across the three dialogue strands is this need for integrated data and analysis, and not only look at the very important local level, but also look at how to integrate some of the regional and sub-regional information into data analysis to inform the operational level, but also then the more political level and the strategies, and even all the way to mandating processes. So I think that is an interesting point that came out very strongly in all three dialogue strands.
Thank you, Benoît. And while you look for if someone would like to come in and pose a question from the audience, I'd just like to add to what you said. It's interesting that when we speak about peacebuilding also from a peace operations lens, we know that the role is still limited compared to the UN country team, and what could be done, especially with bilateral funds, with funds from the development banks. We know the efforts by the regional directs and so on. So I think we really need to see that resources are plenty when it comes to your area of work, Roya, the Dialogue Strand 2 peacebuilding. And we need to tap on that, so development actors actually work in structural conflict prevention, and of course also in the AU-UN context. Benoît, do we have any questions coming in that we raise verbally or?
Nothing so far, Björn. But maybe we could clarify to our audience that if they want to come in live as well, they can raise their hand in the participants list, so I can have a look on who would like to come in live. You can, of course, also submit questions in the chat function. So both options are available.
I think in the meantime, we'll continue. We'll wait and see if we get any questions. So I'll actually turn to, and thanks for this, Annette. Very, very, very helpful. And as I should have said from the beginning, we will be working at the Secretariat to refine the recommendations. So we have even sharper ones. These are the fresh one directly from the oven, so to say, being baked by our dialogue strands. So Roy, please, if you could share also what you came up with in your dialogue strand on peace building. The screen is yours.
Thank you very much, Björn. Thank you, and all the teams from the Challenges Forum for all the arrangement and for the successful event. Congratulations for that. The discussion is very rich, of course, especially for those of you attending the Dialogue Strand 2. So maybe we'll present several key takeaways in the format of clustered presentation. But before that, I also would like to thank all 5 chairs of the breakout session group from the Dialogue Strand 2, Carl, Colin, Lisa, Michael, and Kotaro, who lead the discussion in the small group and coming with some findings and recommendations. So first, there is a need to continue enhancing peace building efforts. The importance of incorporating peace building priorities in mission mandates is one of the issues that always come up quite frequent. It means I sense that there is a general agreement that develop better understanding of the roles and accountabilities of actors involved in peace building and sustaining peace should always be in the radar of all relevant stakeholders. And in this regard, there is also a need for joint programming and coordinations between different actors in the ground, for sure, including, but not limited to, we were speaking earlier, with regard to partnership with regional organizations in order to ensure ownership. by everybody. And other aspect that should be taken into consideration to enhance peace building efforts, among others, are the needs for capacity building and training, as well as providing specific expertise according to the host nation requirements. And I think the issue of national ownership coming up here again, also like earlier discussed in the Dialogue Strand 1 findings. Last, also the performance assessment review to give incentive for improved performance should also be conducted. The second cluster of key takeaway is all relevant stakeholders should continue advancing people-centric approach. State-centric and people-centric approach need to be balanced. There is also a need for the UN to be more adept in responding to people, in addition to support states institution. However, during the discussion, it's clear that in order to become more people-centered, peace operations do not necessarily require new mandates or policies or additional resources. I mean, it requires a shift of mindset at all levels, especially at the leadership level and organizational change. And of course, there is a need to invest time more to build strategic alliances with local and national actors. And in this regard, the issue of community engagement is going to be one of the crucial elements during the peace building measures. And although during the discussion, the issue of community engagement can be done by all relevant actors, but there is also a specific discussion where the police component can share experience for this particular model of engagements, as they have particular expertise in this field. Just briefly, for the second key takeaway, there are also several measures that always discussed frequently. There is a need to identify the relevant local actors to ensure analysis from the start is always people-centered anyway. And then there is also encouragement for further consultation between UN country team and local representative. And something that also discussed in depth is encouragement to the UN Security Council to take field trip in order to get better understanding with regard to the situation. The last takeaway is about women peace and security, and also youth peace and security. There is, I think, a general agreement that we need to utilize all mechanisms in order to ensure the involvement of women and youth in peace building measures. Those two agendas should be linked to the overall political directions of UN presence in the host country. Leadership is needed in this particular issues because, of course, sometimes it's easily distract when we are talking about the implementation on the ground. So the tailor-made proposal on those two issues and how we are going to bring the issue of women and youth in the peace building need clear leadership with proper roadmap agreed by all stakeholders to be easily implemented. So I think those are some takeaways that we would like to propose to you. Thank you very much, Björn.
Thank you very much, Roy, for being sharp on that. And I think we can see that it was a very good discussion. And I'll reiterate what you said. We should thank all the Challenges Forum partners chairing the working sessions, 15 of them actually in total. So this has really been a collective effort of everyone, including the participants. Any reflections from Annette or Cedric on what you heard from Roy in relationship to your own discussions? Annette?
Yes, I think I want to enhance what Roy mentioned of, and there is a tendency amongst peace operations to focus more on the developing the local skills and national capabilities when it comes to peace building issues. That would be one thing. And going back to our dialogue strand, I would just like to reiterate that the engagement between the UN Peacebuilding Commission should be strengthened as part of the UN-AU relations. As currently, and as we pointed out in a recently published ISS report, it shows that peace building at the moment is still the weakest link in the partnership between the UN and AU. So Roy has a very important point that we should focus on enhancing the peace building relationship as well between the two entities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Annette. Cedric, please.
Thank you very much, Roy. And yeah, if I take again a perspective from the performance dialogue strand and look at the discussions you had in dialogue strand 2 on peace building and sustaining peace, I think one of the things that come out strongly to me is the need for performance assessment systems like the comprehensive performance assessment system and others to find good ways of engaging with the different actors, for instance, within the UN system that are involved in peace building. I mean, this is one of the areas especially where there's lots of activities beyond the peace operation carried out by the country team or the peace building fund or several other actors. But of course, also very strongly in this area, your engagement with your national counterparts and with communities and civil society. And this is not something that always comes easy, especially in the performance strand. So I think this is an area that stands out for us to refine and do more work on, so that this element of a peace operations, let's say strategic objectives and result framework, can really benefit from engagement with national counterparts, local communities, civil society, but also others across the nexus of the international system. Thank you.
Cedric, thank you for raising that about performance also, because I think that's been a criticism towards peace building for over 25 years, that it becomes too unclear, so to say, what are we really striving at? And I know working with Development Cooperation before that we used the working definition that peace building you can only call actions that are consciously addressing the drivers of peace and conflict. It's not development cooperation in general. It is really targeted at these drivers. And I think that needs to resonate and differentiate, because we also know that intervention can increase conflict, especially development ones, as they are about resources and changing power situations, if it's governance or gender equality and so on. Thanks a lot to all three of you. Benoît, do we have any questions from the floor or?
No questions so far. I think all of our participants are really tired after a whole week of intense reflections.
Or there could be another perspective that the co-chairs have so interesting views to share, so they want to get most out of it. So we'll continue. And I don't know, Benoît, if you have any additions to this, what has been said so far.
Yes, looking through my notes, maybe just a few additions. I think some of the working groups also highlighted that the politics cannot be delinked from the programmatic objectives if you want to enhance the impact of peace building. So to really look at how to merge and align programs to the more political strategies, I think was an important one. Very much in line with what Roy said about the people-centered approach. Some of the working groups added there the renewed emphasis the UN should put on good governance and social contracts between populations and political leadership. And finally, maybe also looking at some of the statements from our high-level opening day. When talking about WPS, I remember very vividly what Marie-Louise Baricako said, that in this 25th anniversary year of WPS, that this should basically be a time for a renewed momentum to strengthen that agenda. Because in her own words, she said that policies and frameworks for WPS are in place, but that in practice, women are still not included and their perspectives and concerns not heard. So I think that was a very strong message from her to take forward in our reflections and in our report as well. And then lastly, maybe from what SRSG Mathieu said, the SRSG in Colombia, a very interesting perspective there, that the COVID-19 implications also, despite all the risks it entails, was also creating opportunities, because the new reality was pushing a much closer synchronization of the different UN presences in countries. So I think there as well, there is a momentum to look at how peace building can get closer to, for example, what UNCTs are doing, and to really look at you know, synchronizing more of these efforts. So I thought that was an interesting point as well, and I'll stop there.
Thank you, Benoît. I thought also what you said, Roy, of connecting the political strategy in the programming, is that when you identify the drivers of peace and conflict, or if it's a peace operations, or if it's development agencies or regional actors, of course, you also need to have those perspectives of women as actors, and also as target groups, as well as youth. So you need to get that in from start as a perspective, as something included in the planning.
Björn, I can see we have, apologies, I see we have one participant, Mirza, who would like to ask a question live.
So we'll let Mirza in then, Funny, if you hear us in our producer, to pose the question.
So I see Mirza is here. Mirza, you can unmute and take the screen.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you, Mirza.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm the one who is named here as Ahmed Mirza from Pakistan. Mirza Saleem from Pakistan. I think a very comprehensive recommendations have been given by all the participants, and they are good for developing a better understanding on the issues with regards to the peacekeeping domain. I just want to suggest one aspect, if that could be, if it is not, asking too much from the mission that is deployed in the different area. I visited the Congo last year, and I made mention in one of the forum also. There is a requirement, once you say peace building, there is a requirement interacting more and more with the community, and initiating those projects with the help of which you could train the women, those who are the affected region, train the youth in the affected region. So for that purpose, United Nations may think of appointing the technical training teams also in the mission area. And those technical training teams may like to interact through the government, obviously involving the local authority, the local government. Through the government may train those people there, and at the same, like in one hand, you train and educate the youth, so that they could use the local resources. I mean, the local resources, like for example, there is a lot. I mean, that can be done as far as as that particular country is concerned. Instead of affording them the food, allow them to grow their own food. I recall, I mean, the visiting portion of the Congo, large swathe of the area lying barren, virgin. I could not see one tractor, I mean, throwing any of the land in that area. So if those kind of technical assistance, technical supports could be made available, and maybe the land reforms could be, I mean, local government could be assisted in undertaking the land reform, so that people could start growing their own, staple food at least, instead of looking towards the United Nations. That is why for the past 60 years, almost, I mean, the Congo is passing through this kind of an arrangement. And it has a virgin, wonderful land.
Mirza, thank you. I think this was a really valuable intervention, and I see it more as a suggestion than a question. And let me just say that one of the conclusions in the big study in Afghanistan was that one of the most peace-building efforts was the community councils receiving funds to actually rebuild communities. The communities did that themselves over time. And that was not a foreseen peace-building effect, but an unforeseen one, but really empowering the local communities. So thanks for your intervention. I think that's really, really valuable of the bottom-up approach that was discussed a lot, Roy, I know, in the peace-building dialogue strand. I think we need to go to the last round now, Cedric. I know you are eager to share the recommendations. So I'll ask you, Cedric, to kick off and share what the dialogue strand 3 discussed on performance, please.
Thank you very much, Björn. And let me first of all just also thank the chairs who chaired the different breakout groups, and our colleagues from EARPON, the different teams that wrote EARPON report who gave us some of their time and joined us, and also the members of the CFIS team who joined us. That was really great and highly enriched our conversation. I'm not going to give recommendations that in a sense summarize the key things that came out of our discussions. There's obviously things that need to be done in terms of enhancing the existing instruments and improving the way we manage data and so on. But I'm going to just maybe highlight 3 recommendations that came to me out of the discussions. And some of them were highlighted in a sense also in the previous conversation we had with Jean-Marie Guénaud and say Jeanette and Karen Lindgren and Ian Martin. So the first one, relating to the need to engage more with communities and to make UN peace operations more people-centered. I think I would like to propose that the UN engage with the research community to develop a process for meaningfully engaging with national and local stakeholders in the countries where peace operations are deployed, so that we can get their participation in and feedback on mission performance and various other processes in missions. And I don't mean just perception surveys, but a whole range of engagement processes. And that's why I'm suggesting, reaching out to the research community so that specific mechanisms can be designed and developed and refined over time. And I think an outside body like the research community can be a great partner for the UN in this process. The second recommendation goes towards the need to improve more what I would call, let's say, strategic performance assessment. And so we've had a lot of focus in the last few days on looking at specific peace operations. But I think there's a need to develop a methodology and a process for assessing the performance of the effectiveness of the whole international effort in a given country. So for instance, in Mali or in Somalia, where you have the UN and the AU and the EU and many other actors, bilateral actors, ad hoc missions, co-deployed, and other development and other efforts, how can we assess that overall international effort? Is that overall international effort achieving what it is meant to do, and where are the gaps and so on? In the effectiveness of peace operations network, we definitely plan to undertake such studies over the coming years. But I think these institutions themselves need to also look at what processes they can come up with internally. And then the last recommendation, and this is also something that came up in the discussion just before ours, relates to the fact that in one of the findings of our effectiveness of peace operations network studies is that one of the key factors determining the effectiveness of operations is the degree to which there's political will and, let's say, political coherence within the Security Council or among other key partners. And I think Kevin Kennedy is the one who asked the question in the last discussion. And this is not something that the peace operations necessarily themselves have control over, but it's a key factor in determining their success. So I would like to suggest that we do more in future to assess the performance of the Security Council and of the UN Secretariat or the African Union Commission, those bodies that deploy peace operations. So we assess also their contribution to the performance of specific peace operations. how their omissions or commissions contribute to the effectiveness or to the performance of those peace operations. Thank you very much. Back to you.
Thank you, Cedric, and of course you are addressing this about accountability at all levels. We all bear responsibility in the promotion of peace and of course in performance. I'll ask Roy and Annette if you have any reflections on the presentation by Cedric from Dialogue Strand 3 on performance that relates to your discussions. Roy, I see you look like you. Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Björn, and congratulations, Cedric, for the successful discussion on the Dialogue Strand 3. I think the linkage with the other dialogue strand, especially the DS2, if I may to sum up, is only one word, which is partnership. I mean, when we are talking about performance, I think I have the opportunity to speak it in a separate occasion with you, Björn, and Cedric. Lately, this is maybe more personal, but I sense the discussion about performance is becoming more a bittersweet candy, if not poisonous candy, in the community of the peace operations. So there is some kind of, what do you call it, question whether this is only another efforts to cornering certain TPCCs, or let's say whether this is only another layer of issues connecting to the budget cut in the UN. So there are so many questions. So at the end of the day, it's all about discussion. It's all about open and frank, what do you call it, consultations among all relevant stakeholders in order to put this particular performance in the correct way, and also what do you call it, to make sure that everybody knows in which particular page we are now speaking with regard to the performance. And I remember in the morning during the high-level discussion, it is mentioned that maybe there is also a need to, let's say in quotation, maybe scrutinize the performance of the UN regional offices rather than only the UN mission itself when it comes to the performance. So now, without any free and frank discussion among stakeholders, there is a tendency that the issue will always be, what do you call it, difficult to be agreed. And this is a bit, what do you call, true story, since we are in the Chatham House rule anyway. And speaking on national capacity, for Indonesia, it is a little bit inexplicable that the UN Security Council's, some of the members of the UN Security Council even reject the issue of consultation with the PCCs in every resolution of draft resolution connected to the extension of mandate, for example. And this is true story, very dear and very near to me, at least personally. It's just showing us that there is a resentment with regard to that kind of consultation, while practically that kind of consultation will be the key to opening up everybody to the, what do you call it, to the coherent approach in assessing the performance from all stakeholders. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roy. And I think this is a really important perspective that we hear from many of our members or partners of the Chalmers Forum. And I think also, Cedric, it was quite clear in the discussion in Dialogue Strand 3 that the value of independent research and the value of the EPON studies as an instrument actually for assessing primarily the strategic and operational levels, not that focused on the troops primarily, but really the connection between primaries of politics, which relates to the whole topic of this annual forum. So we come back to that it's actually accountability of all levels of the peace operations, and the idea raised by you, Cedric, that also look at the totality of actors and the effect or the impact. As we know, there is always, I mean, it's most frankly the rule than the exception, that there is a lack of a common political approach. It's good that was highlighted. Annette, any reflections from your side?
Yes, thank you, Cedric, for those excellent suggestions. I would like to reiterate 2 points that Cedric made. You cannot look at the effectiveness of peace operations without looking at the effectiveness of the Secretariat, as well as the effectiveness of the AU Commission. I don't have to add anything. It's just factually correct and very important. And then the second point, Cedric, that I completely agree with you, you need to look holistically at all the role players in a specific country. Let's just take Mali as an example. The role of the country team, the role of all the actors and different forces that are engaged there. And then how can you only measure the effectiveness of one entity in the overarching play in that conflict? So very important, and we've read all the reports, and I once again want to compliment IPON for its outstanding work. Thank you.
Thank you, Annette, and I think we agree on that. The IPON studies have the past 3 years been a really important source also for the Challenge Forum discussions. I see synergies in between, to have a reference point of assessing the effectiveness. Benoît, I think we have a question from the floor now.
We do, Björn. We have 2 questions related to training in peace operations, and I suggest we take the question of Colonel Roberto Gil, who is an advisor at CINOMAPA Uruguay, also works with ALCOPAS Latin America. And his question reads as follows. I propose a single question, and it is about the transfer of all these themes and issues to the areas of education for peace operations. What are the key issues that deserve particular attention, and at what levels should they be addressed?
Anyone would like to address that? Cedric, please.
I can try. I mean, I think, of course, we have the International Association of Peacekeeping Training Centers, which to some degree try to synthesize the lessons coming out of the community and help to transform that into training material. But perhaps we lack something like that more at the level of education. I mean, it's even not clear to me always where is education happening in the area of peace operations. In the more civilian academic community, it's sometimes perhaps a module or a sub-module as part of a master's degree course or something like that may touch on peace operations or peace and security more broadly. But I know in some military or police institutions, there's perhaps more focused module or courses on peace operations. But perhaps we need some kind of a network of cooperation amongst those involved in education in this area, so that we can better make that link between, what's the research that's emerging out of the community, the lessons that's emerging out of the policy community, and how that can be transferred into education. Thank you.
Cedric, and I might also mention when you raised this and Colonel Gill's question that the partnership is launching early next year, our considerations for mission leadership in UN peace operations, where all of you have actually contributed, including many other partners. And that integrates also the CFIS as a management tool for strategic decision making. So we are, of course, also looking at, who are the institutions that could help use this guidance for senior mission leaders, but also middle management. So we need to seek those synergies among practitioners, teaching institutions, and researchers, of course, to really learn from practice, but also from research. I think Annette, you would like to jump in.
Just one quick comment from the training experience that we have found in Africa, but it may be similar in other continents as well. When you look at military institutions, it is part and parcel of nearly every military that I know of to train and educate soldiers on the whole background of peacekeeping, peace operations, and as they make progress in their career, to add value on peace operations to prepare them for next level. However, our experience is that at police academies, that has not always been the case and still is not always the case. And we have and are in the process of preparing a sort of a small curricula for police academies on the continent, to when cadets come in and do their basic training, that they are already exposed to peace operations, concept of peace operations and the police's role, etc. Thank you.
Thank you, Annette. I know, Roy, you would like to come in, and then we're getting to the closing words from all the co-chairs. Roy.
Thank you. On training questions, Björn, posed by our colleague. So maybe in short, I can only emphasize that all these findings from our event should be transferred and at all levels. Should be, what do you call it, informed to all stakeholders. But if there is one thing that need to be understood by everybody, is all about understanding the overall mechanism and architecture of the peace operation and peace building. It doesn't mean that everybody will sterile themselves from the activities of others. But for me, the understanding of the bigger pictures, the big machinery, will help us in what do you call it? Understanding the allocation of works among different stakeholders, and even maybe different stakeholders can do something in order to be a good seeds towards the activities conducted by other stakeholders. For example, when we are talking about community engagement, if it is something that already been taught properly by the TPCCs on their home country before the troops arrive in the host country, and later on they have this kind of community engagement approach throughout the mission, it might be a good seeds. What do you call it? There is a potential that later on the host community, the host country, or at least the local community will be more acceptance to the arrival of the UN or any stakeholders peace building activities. So all those linkages should be clear up from the very beginning, so everybody know what is their roles, but it doesn't mean that they have to stop if they can help towards other activities from other stakeholders. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Roy. I think you've had really good ideas that you've generated through the group discussions. And I think we're now coming actually to the formal closing. So I'll ask in the order that were the days, Annette and Roy and Cedric to provide some final words from your side as co-hosts. And then I will provide some final words on behalf of the Challenges Forum Partnership. So Annette, the floor is yours.
Thank you. First of all, on behalf of the ISS, we would like to thank the Challenges Forum International Secretariat for hosting this event. Very important event and well organized. ISS took pride in being one of the strands and working with the Foreign Ministry of Indonesia and with NUPI on this year's discussions. We experienced during this week some global thinkers looking at challenges, finding solutions, and focusing more on solutions than identifying problems. ISS, as a Pan-African human security organization, has always advocated for a stronger role of Africa in the world. Africa is not only a recipient of most of the peace operations globally, but it is also the source of some of the most innovative ways of responding to conflicts. Therefore, by leading a dialogue strand on strengthening the partnership between the UN and the AU, ISS is happy to see Africa taking a central stage in this year's forum. This assisted not only to consider solutions to African challenges, but also to raise awareness amongst an important community about African models and lessons in the global peace operations discourse. I once want to thank everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Annette, for your kind words. Then I'll ask Roy for your final words.
Yes, thank you, Björn. I mean, to conclude, I think the multi-stakeholders approach should be optimized to strengthen impact of peace operations in the field to peace building and sustaining peace in general. There should be a clear understanding that peace operation cannot work alone and cannot work in silo. It needs support from other agencies, including NGOs, UN country teams on the ground. And commitment from member states and other relevant stakeholders is also very important in terms of various activities, reporting, resources, and also accountability, including in the issue of WPS and other peace building priorities. And also we also need to bear in mind that the issue of funding should be addressed using this multi-stakeholder approach. Coordination between donors and local community deems necessary to ensure the enhanced quantity and quality of funding to peace building. And in this regard, of course, it will be amiss if we do not touch the importance of the peace building fund. But also at the same time, there is also a need to align bilateral assistance with peace building priorities, and also, if possible, also to bring the involvement of financial institutions, just like World Bank, and to in order to support peace building efforts in peace operation settings. So lastly, before I stop, I just would like to thank you, Björn, again, and our team from Challenges Forum and all participants for the contribution and engagement during the Dialogue Strand 2. And also I would like to thank ISSS and NUPI for co-hosting the event together with Challenges Forum. Thank you very much.
No, sorry, Björn. So thank you. I just, first of all, to you and your team, I mean, you did a fantastic job of hosting all of us, and it was great to do this together with our colleagues at ISS and in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Indonesia. So really, our appreciation on behalf of NUPI and IRPON. And I want to especially, recognize our participants. You just mentioned how many people we've had throughout this 5 days engaging. And I noticed, just looking through the list again now, we have colleagues from China and Japan and the East, and North America and Latin America and in the West. So the engagement has been incredible, from member states to training centers to researchers, military, police, civilian. It's really a fantastic community that you have gathered together here, and that we've been able to engage with. So thank you very much to all of you for joining us for this week. Back to you, Björn.
And before I say my closing words, I also would like to remind you, those of you being Challenges partner, that we're going to have our International Steering Committee, the partner meeting that decides on our operational plan for the 2 years ahead, on the 27th of January. And I think a lot of good ideas have come out of this annual forum that we could capitalize on and think of. Where do we find synergies where we as a collective network, global network, can push together for change, for peace and more effective peace operations? But let me then, and thanks for your kind words. It's been such a pleasure to work together. So I say, dear co-hosts, Challenges partners and friends of Challenges Forum, I think the multilateral collaboration can work even in times of a pandemic. And your active participation as co-host, but also everyone else the past week, has proven this with very strong evidence, both in the open sessions where we've had over 200 participants, and of course also in the closed session where we've had around 40 to 50 people sitting for hours behind their screens, really contributing. And that, I think, is a strong proof of that we still can work together. In this week-long journey, we have discussed how to sustain effective peace operations in the changing global landscape, and we have reflected on the opportunities of strengthening collective engagement and political support to improve peace operations. And I think also with the 25th anniversary of the Women, Peace and Security Agenda and the 5th anniversary of the Youth, Peace and Security Agenda, we've been able to inject these, especially during Indonesia, your Roy's Dialogue Strand, but also in the others. Our key objective was to be thought-provoking, innovative, inclusive, and results-oriented in formulating concrete policy recommendations. And I've seen, as always in our gatherings, and this time with the additional challenge of being online, that you've engaged with hearts, minds, and souls. You have even survived numerous virtual coffee breaks guided by artificial intelligence, something totally new to the Challenge Forum. And of course, having been glued in total 9 hours in the dialogue sessions this week. To me, the strength of the Challenge Forum partnership, and much as you said, Cedric, is that it consists of 50 departments and organizations from 23 countries. It's a really global effort spanning all corners of the globe. And that it has this character of an impartial platform for dialogue on peace operations. And to summarize, it is a bridge between policy and practice. It is a bridge between the UN, regional organizations, experts, and Challenge Forum partners. And it is a bridge for informal constructive dialogue for enhancing peace operations, a track 1.5 or track 2 dialogue. And in the end, it is really what its partnership and its member makes it. The draft results we heard from all three of you and some intervention from Benoît is an evidence of this important and impartial platform. And I want to thank you, especially being co-chairs, having led the process, 15 of you co-chairs from our partnership and the joint analysis. I would like to remind everyone, both you being in the open sessions and you being special MITs, that you respond to the evaluation that has been sent to you. That will really help us to improve the format, to improve the substance, and see that when testing this new format, we will make it as good as possible. Having said that, of course, not replacing the physical meetings when that will become possible again. The way ahead then, what will happen? Well, we will produce at the Secretariat, with support of a bunch of good experts, an executive report with a selection of the most important recommendations coming out from the 3 dialogue strands. And we ask you all, Challenge Forum partners, experts, academics, government representatives, UN and the AU, to use these guiding or recommendations to guide your communication as key and with other key stakeholders. And in short, together, our impact is larger, and so the fruits of our multilateral dialogue. And I want to give a warm thanks to Annette from the Institute for Security Studies for having led Dialogue Strand 1, to Roy, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia, for leading Dialogue Strand 2, and of course Cedric from NUPI for leading Dialogue Strand 3. You have worked with us in the Secretariat for the past 6 months. You won't see that, the rest of you having participated, how demanding us at the Secretariat have been with a co-host, and how generous you have been and professional in contributing and guiding us towards innovative ideas. This would not have been possible without the individual and team efforts by your colleagues. And I would like to mention, especially from Indonesia, Rina, Reza, and Benedicta, from ISS, Gustavo and Prial, and NUPI, Jenny, and Anab. They are worth applauding for all their efforts. I'm also very grateful to Sara Abdegeli and Dr. Andreas Andersson, the expert at the International Secretariat, being rapporteurs that have helped us to summarize the conclusions and will help us make the report. And I would like to ask CFIS team to come onto the screen. So I'll ask the CFIS screen to come onto the team. All my colleagues are very much looking forward to having some day off. It's been quite intensive. But I would like to extend, as your manager, my deep gratitude to your efforts. It's been breathtaking and very professional. So thanks to you all. And I suggest that everyone at home make a small applause for their efforts. Excellent work. And thank you for that. And your gift to them, of course, aside from your silent applause at home, is to please fill out the evaluation. That we would be tremendously grateful if you do so, meaning we can improve the work we do ahead. For you, the rest of you having been participants in the dialogue strands, and we have benefited from the enormous potential of each and one of your contributions. Without you being part of the lengthy sessions behind the screen, we wouldn't have reached the recommendations, the draft recommendations we have reached so far. So we really value your contributions, and we think that your collective participation has made all the difference. I close this virtual annual forum by wishing you all successful work for peace ahead, and especially triumphs in seeking synergies and creating alliances for change. Death to the stovepipes. Together we can do much more. And stay safe. Welcome back to Challenges Forum virtual and physical platforms in 2021. And remember, you are all ambassadors in turning commitments into actions. And by having said that, I formally close the Challenges Annual Forum 2020, and I invite the special invitees to a small virtual artificial intelligence steered mingle in 5 minutes. And welcome back in 2021. Thank you to everyone for contributing. Bye.